Catastrophic events such as the Japan earthquake, Hurricane Katrina, and 9/11 often give rise to very complex contingent business interruption claims. An insured may not sustain any damage to its own property as a result of a catastrophe, yet its business may be interrupted by damage to the businesses of its customers or suppliers. For that reason, contingent business interruption coverage can be very important following a catastrophe. Contingent business interruption coverage also provides coverage for costs and expenses that may be incurred by an insured following a catastrophic loss. For instance, if an insured is able to locate alternative suppliers for component parts, it may have to pay additional costs to obtain those parts, or it may incur additional transportation costs. First and foremost, a contingent business interruption loss must be caused by property damage that prevents the flow of goods or services to or from the insured. It's not unusual for a catastrophic event to cause social and economic disruptions, and those disruptions may have a major impact on the insured's business. A mere decrease in customers or sales following a catastrophe in and of itself will not give rise to a business interruption claim. There must be a connection or a nexus between the property damage and the inability of the suppliers or the customers to provide goods or services to the insured. This issue has been addressed by a number of courts. In one case, a supplier was unable to supply goods to an insured as a result of a power failure. The power failure did not cause any damage to the insured's plant, however. The court there said that there was no coverage for the contingent business interruption loss because it was not connected to physical loss or damage to the property. In another case, the operator of a parking garage next to an airport sought coverage for a loss or decline in revenue it sustained as a result of the order grounding all civil flights that was issued following 9/11. There, the court held that coverage was not triggered because the order that was issued was not issued as a result of physical loss or damage to property. Some policies will provide coverage for losses resulting from physical loss or damage to all suppliers and customers, whereas other ones limited them only to direct suppliers or customers. In the case I previously mentioned involving the electric company, the electric utility did in fact sustain damage to its property, which is what resulted in the power outage. However, the court concluded that the electrical utility was not a supplier of the insured, and therefore the physical loss or damage it sustained did not trigger coverage. In another case, the court took a much broader interpretation of who constitutes a supplier or customer. In that case, the court concluded that the United States Army Corps of Engineers and the United States Coast Guard, which operate and maintain the Mississippi River system, were suppliers of goods or services to companies that transport goods on the Mississippi River. Another issue that may arise is whether the supplier or customer was located in a covered territory. Some policies may limit coverage to losses that occur only in certain territories, such as the United States. Another important limitation is that in order to trigger coverage, it must be shown that the physical loss or damage that prevents the flow of goods or services to or from the insured is of a type that is covered under the policy. Commercial property insurance policies often exclude or sublimit coverages for earthquake and flood damage in certain high-risk areas. Losses caused by nuclear contamination or nuclear radiation are almost always excluded. Unfortunately, it can be very difficult to determine what caused the interruption of the customer or the supplier's business. That's especially true when you're dealing with a supplier to a supplier, which is known as a second-tier supplier. In the ordinary loss situation, an insurance company typically has access to the insured and its facilities and can do its own investigation into what caused the loss. In the case of a supplier or a customer, you might not have that access, and you may have to rely more on third-party information as to what caused the loss. There also likely will be issues as to how to measure a loss. A disaster may have an impact on markets around the world, causing more demand in some and increasing demand in others. An insured that is able to resume operations more quickly than its competitors may be in a position to take advantage of those changes in the market and make up income that it otherwise would have lost. That raises an issue as to whether, when measuring the loss, any increase in sales may be taken into consideration. Obviously, the determination as to whether coverage exists will depend on the particular policy language and the facts at issue in each case.